Hey everyone, welcome to White. You're shaking your head already. We haven't even started yet. Welcome to
Because I said silence and you were just clinkety clankety moving, touching things.
Oh, I don't think you picked up on the recording. Anyway, be that as it may, welcome to episode 232 of the All Dolphins podcast. I am here again, back in my warm hotel room in Indianapolis after walking from the Indianapolis Convention Center, where it's kind of cold, but also very windy, and the wind hits up your face and makes me love.
I told you there isn't any. You're only walking indoors in Indy. You got to step outside at some point, and that's when that wind chill. Huh?
Step outside, and I have lost every ounce of my Canadianism when it comes to dealing with cold weather. I want no part of it. I hate it. Hate it.
You became South Florida soft.
Yes. I embrace it. Actually, no problem admitting that. We're going to discuss today what General Manager Chris Grier told them, a small group of Dolphin reporters in Indianapolis.
You're officially called the South Florida media contingent. So
that too. Anyways, a group of.
Hold on, there were outsider reporters?
No.
I'm about to say, y'all better.
Yes, it was.
You better get your act together.
Although, however, no, it was the South Florida contingent plus gentleman who actually lives in Orlando. But he has covered the Dolphins. Covered the Dolphins for a very long time. Now works for a national outlet.
Go ahead. Okay.
All right. Okay. Anyway, be that as it may, there's a group of about 12 people. We'll discuss what Chris Grier had to say about Tua, Xavien Howard, Christian Wilkins, Jerome Baker,
Cam Smith,
Jalen Waddle. Before we discuss that, we're going to do our history lesson, which today's going to center on the number 32 because it's episode 32. Dolphins have made the 32nd overall selection in the NFL draft one time. That was 2008. And Omar, you jumped the gun yesterday. So yes, it's Philip Merling. They were only 31 picks in the first round of that year. I believe that was because of Spygate or Deflategate. I forget which one. It's one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 31 picks. The Dolphins had the first overall pick. They took Jake Long. Then they had the first pick in the second round, which became pick 32. And they took Philip Merling, a defensive end from Clemson.
What I loved about that draft year was, I believe it was one of the first that they did the double down, which was take two players at one position during the Parcells Ireland reign. They took Philip Merling and Kendall Lampert. And traditionally, when they did that in the double down, the second player generally turned out to be the better player. Vontae Davis is the only one that you can actually debate it. Vontae Davis, what's his name? Sean Smith was the only one. And I would argue too that
you're gonna make me do this because I love Keith Sims. But are we going to say that?
I was talking about during the Parcells era.
Okay, sorry, Keith. Keith, I didn't mean it because you were a great player, 3-time Pro Bowl guard, but Richmond Webb was a 7-time Pro Bowl selection.
Yeah, nobody's arguing that. I'm talking about during the Parcells era of the double down. Remember Hartline and Patrick Turner?
Very good name from the past. Patrick Turner from USC.
Yeah. They even had some cornerbacks, Will Davis and Jamar
Taylor, but that was 2013 after Parcells. Those became Philip.
Yeah, I threw Ireland in there. Ireland doubled down. Okay. Ireland kept doing the Parcells way, which I always respected. I still respect the Parcells way. I would argue that Parcells' draft probably had more fruit to it than a lot of the other drafts that we've had in recent years. But anyway, that's just me.
Good player is a good player. Couple of players were picked 32nd in a round by the Dolphins, including one of their best picks of the 2010s, and that was Rashad Jones. It was the 32nd pick in the 5th round of the 2010 draft. So that worked out well.
And Ring of Honor player.
They're not doing that anymore.
What?
When's the last time they put somebody in the Dolphins?
That doesn't mean that they shouldn't. Cam Wake, and Rashad Jones and Xavien Howard, to me, are all Ring of Honor contenders.
Okay. And then I was going to mention that there also have been a couple of 232nd overall picks, which is the exact best one. Yes, sir. 3 times, including the best one was a defensive tackle by the name of Jermaine Haley in 1999, who had played at a junior college before going to the CFL. He was in the Larry Chester, Tim Bowens type in terms of body type, as in was more wide than he was tall. And he was a solid player for 1 or 2 years for the Dolphins before his career fizzled. So that takes care of our history lesson for today. You will be quizzed tomorrow. Okay, you're not. So Chris Grier, to me, I guess the biggest headline I got out of this was him saying the door is not closed on X coming back if after he checks out what's available to him on the market, wants to come back, doesn't get a deal he wants, and likes the idea of returning to the Dolphins. Based on Chris Grier's words, they would be open to that.
You want my take?
Of course I want you. No, I just want you to just nod your head and say yes. Yes, I want your take.
That's surprising, but I don't think it's true. But we'll see. I think that's something you say to preserve face. I think it's something you say just to not close the door, but I don't necessarily think that it's true or accurate. Just my personal opinion based on perspective and insight.
Yes. Greer called it a tough decision, said he had a long conversation with X after the season ended, and they decided that was best. Here's my thing. Because Grier later on talked about Cam Smith and then Cater Cohu and whoever else they might bring in. Mm-hmm. It doesn't behoove Chris Grier. There's no point in Chris Grier mentioning it.
Mentioning X,
and then the idea of like would be okay with the idea of him returning. You made the move that you made. Obviously, it was salary cap considerations. I don't know if it's basically to put a stamp on the fact that it was purely financially driven and not a reflection on his ability. I don't know.
I don't. Here's my thing. If you really did want to leave that out there as a possibility, then you should have said that to more than just the media. Using my words carefully here.
Yes, you are. I mean, you are doing some major tiptoeing right now.
And I'm not saying that what was said or not said. I just don't necessarily. I think it's more about saying the right things to a fan base that basically just lost one of their top 10 players for cap situations, and everybody understands why. But the problem that a lot of people see with the decision is you're not positioned to move on without him. And then you talk about Cam Smith and how, we got a story up on alldolphins.com addressing what he said about Cam Smith, which was basically, he's working hard to win the offseason. He got an endorsement from Jalen Ramsey and the justification of why he didn't play, but all of it was bullcrap. Just all of it. So if he was working so hard and, Chris Grier could have walked into a meeting with Mike McDaniel and as a top executive in the Miami Dolphins organization, just like he did with Tua Tagovailoa when Tua needed to start, he could have walked into a meeting with Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio and said, I'm sorry, Eli Apple needs to stop and we need to play Cam Smith and we need to see what we have. And it moved from there and done.
Yeah.
You can make your face and you can just why no?
What face did I make? I'm just going like this.
You did an Omar face. You did
no, the Omar faces, and then that's the Omar. There you go.
He's a top executive in the Dolphins organization. Nobody has more power inside the organization on football decisions outside of Steve Ross than Chris Grier.
on roster procurement and assembly. I don't
Head man
believe-
in charge. Head man.
Now when it comes to game day and during the week, and you give me the player, it's Chris' job to get the players, Mike McDaniel's job to coach them. They work as much hand in hand as possible. But I don't think that Chris Grier would walk into Mike McDaniel's office and say, "You're playing Cam Smith and you're going to like it." And the Tua thing, as I hypothesized a while back, and I'm still going to maintain that it was an organizational decision made before that season, that he was going to enter the lineup at the bye. The bye was moved. And when the bye arrived, regardless of the circumstances, it was like, okay, this is what we had decided as a franchise before the season. We're going to implement our plan and stick with it. So Tua's now the starter. This is going back to 2020 for those not familiar with the reference.
Anyway, I can move on from there. What I'm telling you is a lot of bullcrap was said today, but let's move on.
Okay, and I would move on that the odds of Xavien, even though that Grier said that the door is open, that the door is not closed, I would still consider the possibility of X being in a Dolphin uniform in 2024 as very, very remote, maybe extraordinarily remote.
Okay, that's fair.
You agree with that?
Yeah. Let's move on. Door not closed, door not open either. Let's move on to what I found very interesting, which were his comments on Tua Tagovailoa and the contract extension. And I think understand that there are some very important timelines associated with this offseason. Critical numbers. Dolphins right now, $37 million over the cap. They have very few minute ways of creating that cap space, and even fewer ways of doing it without depleting your talent base. Now, mind you, March 5th is a very important date because that's the Christian Wilkins franchise tag or transition tag day. You can't get a long-term deal with Christian Wilkins. You either use the tag, which now adds $22 or $18.5 million to that $37 million deficit, or you get a multi-year deal done, or you expose him to the market and you just try to bid on him like everybody else. You do that, I say wave bye-bye to him. Then after that, you've got March 13th, which is the critical day that you have to be under the cap. There is no, oh, we're working towards it, or no, you have to be under the cap. It's not an option for you. That's the beginning of the league year. You need to be compliant. Now, Dolphins got a lot of work to do. Now, the mechanisms that they have to get under the cap are restructure Tua Tagovailoa, take him from that fifth-year option at $22.3 million to give him a multi-year deal, which will give him a lower cap number, probably in the neighborhood of $8 to $12 million that year. Now, it's not going to just absolutely solve all your problems, but it's going to help you. As I wrote on alldolphins.com, which you can find the story there, I also proposed that you do a contract extension for Tyreek Hill. Why a extension instead of a restructuring? Understand this, that if you restructure Tyreek after restructuring him last year and after having a fake year on his contract in 2026, if you restructure him and move more cap money down, his cap numbers are going to be astronomically impossible in 2025 and 2026. That's why you have to add years. And if you read the column that I wrote on alldolphins.com, if you add years to his deal at his present rate or give him $1 million or $2 million per year bump, it's not really necessary because they're already the highest paid receiver in the NFL. He just wants to maintain his status there. If you add years, you could potentially create $14 million in cap space this year, and also cap space in the ensuing years that come. And that includes restructuring him again. Now, that's another way to create $14 million. But to address what Chris Grier said, Tua, if you're going to do Tua in terms of giving him a multi-year deal instead of the
restructure, it's an extension.
Yes. Yeah, he's under contract now, so it's technically, yes, it's an extension. If you're going to use him to create the cap space that you need, you'd have to do this by March 13th. So
if you're doing it for the sole reason of creating cap flexibility, yes. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Otherwise, then you're doing it purely to extend them, which is
okay.
That's what.
And what Chris Grier said today is these deals take time. These deals, there's a lot of the negotiations. This is not a small number. When Tua signs his deal, he'll be signing the largest deal in Dolphins franchise history. So no matter what it looks like, it's still going to be the largest deal in franchise history. So whether you want to give it to him on the cheap or give it to him on the high end, it's still going to be the largest deal in franchise history. So there's challenges to it. But what Chris Grier kind of hinted at multiple times in his press conference with the South Florida contingent was, this deal could take us till training camp, take us till the start of the regular season. This deal could take some time. And that makes some sense. That hints that we're probably not going to get this done by March 13th.
And this is where I would jump in and say, and by the way, for the smart Alex on Twitter, yes, we're going to mention that Chris Grier said that he's going to talk to his agent at the combine. Ryan Williams, okay? So I don't need the slack for no reason, just to be obnoxious. Anyway, having taken care of that, if the Dolphins, as suggested kind of by Chris Grier's words, do not extend Tua before March 13th, that means that they will have been able to do the moves necessary to get under the salary cap. Mm-hmm. At which point, to me, then it becomes you extend Tua no longer for cap flexibility, to get under the cap and giving him an extension. Then you're extending him, you give him a long-term deal strictly to extend him and commit to him longer. At which point I go back to my original premise or position that in that case, Tua, you're playing on the 5th-year option.
No matter what, it's going to help them financially if they extend him. But they've already said to you, we want to do this deal. We love Tua. We're ready to propose. So
I'm not debating what their position is. I am just stating my position again. That I think it's a bad move for the Dolphins.
And they don't care what you think. They don't care what you think. They don't care what I think. They put us in the hater category, as Mike McDaniel said yesterday. We're all haters. If you don't love Tua, you're just a hater. So they're ready to propose. At what price? How big the ring? We don't know. But they're ready to say their I do's. And as Mike McDaniel says, he knows more than us all because he deals with him and is responsible for making him good. So, and Chris Grier kind of piggybacked on it as well today. They know more. That's great, and nobody's arguing that. I would never pretend for a millisecond. I mean, he's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. However, he's also not quite as objective as we can be because every coach has an ego, and Mike McDaniel kind of was brought in partly to get the most out of Tua, and he succeeded the first 2 seasons in certainly elevating his game. And if you think Mike McDaniel is going to reach a point to say, yeah, and you know what, I don't think I can get any more out of him. Yeah, really, that's going to happen? Come on. So the question is, how well are they able to be honest with themselves in terms of what the ceiling is? And again, it's entirely possible that they're right, that there's a lot more juice to squeeze, and I'm completely off base and wrong. Okay. I have my questions about whether the ceiling has been reached. And to me, it's not wise to lock in for 3 more years based on hope and faith and belief. And by the way, Chris Grier also said he believes that there's more room for growth, that he'll continue to take the next step up. So he's, again, what else is he going to say? And that's obviously only time will tell how that plays out. Again, to me, why is it so bad to wait to have him play on the 5th-year option? I don't to be more sure. I don't get it, because again, there has not been the key performance late in the season against a good team. That's just flat. Well, you can do that all you want, but that's a fact. I mean, I didn't argue that it was a fact.
That's a fact, Jack. I mean, and that's kind of significant if you're going to toss big money And that Spotrac number projection I saw was like frightening.
What did Spotrac project?
4 years, 220 million with 130 million guaranteed or something to that effect.
Oh yeah, that's a good projection right there. I was
Yeah,
at 100,
awesome.
120 to 130 million. I only care about the guaranteed money, as you know.
I understand that,
but understand that 4 years is probably the addition to the 5th-year option, because the 5th-year option is already in the books. No matter what they do,
okay,
they're going to do a 4-year extension, which is going to make it a 5-year deal, and they're just going to report the fake money and not factor in that, okay, the $23 million averages into what the new money is. So ultimately, if he walks away with $130 million guaranteed, I think it'll be a respectable deal. And truthfully speaking, the deal is over when the guaranteed money is over. So
and you're guessing maybe like 2 voidable years at the end, so it's 3 more years. And again, so by the time that you can get out of that contract, you're looking at 7 years. I'm sorry.
No. Once the guaranteed money is up, you can get out of the contract. Always.
Correct. So correct. How long do you think the guaranteed money is going to be? It's going to be at least another 3 years.
Yes, 3 years, 2024, 2025.
Which is what I said, and that means that through at 2026, he will have played in the NFL for 7 years.
Okay,
that's Ryan Tannehill territory, and if he proves that he's not quite good enough,
is he right? And do we know how good he could be in 3 years? Not a clue. Nobody knows.
But okay, and we're not going to go back because we've done this before, and that's my point. Is I don't want to lock myself into 3 more years to find out.
You don't have any options.
BS. Sorry, that's.
What's your option? You always.
No, Omar. Let's move on. If you want, we'll address it another because that's all we do is talk about this guy and the fact, and you keep throwing back at me the fact that there's no options and you don't lock yourself.
You realize Kirk Cousins probably going to walk away with $130 million in guaranteed money this offseason, right?
Dude, my whole point is you do not lock yourself into a guy for seven years it will have been without having a certain comfort level that he can get you where you want to go when push comes to shove. Okay.
What are your options?
Omar, again, you're playing both sides again.
No. I'm saying, you don't. I have no problems. I think they should play the 5th-year option out. However, I know they're not going to do it.
And I don't either. That doesn't change. It's not going to change my opinion. So let's move on. Yeah. Again, I'm on record as saying I don't like it. They should play on the 5th-year option, but that's not what's going to happen. Okay. And please stop with what are your other options? Jesus.
It's an important question.
An unknown option 2 years down the road is better than an unknown option where you're locked into 3 more years after it's been 4 years. Okay. Sorry.
They already love him. They love him.
I know that. I know
they want to marry. They want to marry him.
I know.
They want to propose.
And that's awesome. And the Dolphins haven't won.
And you want to be a free agent. You want to be.
And the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since 2000.
You want to be a serial dater.
Okay, let's move on because I'm going to guess we're going to lose some viewers by now, and I apologize because we get into this rant and Omar's pushing buttons right now, and he knows I'm completely right, but he's going to push.
You're completely wrong for the fact that you want to just date, and you have no options out there. Nobody wants to date you, but you want to be dating. It doesn't happen that way.
Do not want. Okay, be single or marry the wrong one. What do you want?
Ouch. Okay.
Purely from a football perspective, I'm talking.
Wow. Okay. All right. Touche. Well played, sir.
Okay, let's move on. Chris Grier was asked about former coworker Mike Tannenbaum's hypothetical suggestion of
former boss, not coworker, former boss.
You're right. Jalen Waddle to the Chiefs for Trent McDuffie, which didn't make a whole lot of sense from a lot of perspectives. And by the way, this is one of those where if I'm the Dolphins, no offense to Jalen Waddle, is a very good player. I do that in a heartbeat. And I discuss why. Tougher position to find, and McDuffie just might be a better cornerback than Waddle is a wide receiver. Plus, he's heading into his 3rd year. Waddle's heading into his 4th year. When now you have to apply the option. and also he's going to be looking at an extension. So there's so many reasons for that. But Chris Grier basically said, no, we're not trading Waddle. We want him to be with the Dolphins for a long time. And even more things, more reasons why that would never happen. The Chiefs apparently are giving permission to L'Jarius Sneed, who is a complete baller, is a pending UFA. They're giving him permission to seek a trade. They might tag him, but they're giving him permission to seek a trade.
I could have sworn I read somewhere today that they were going to tag him.
With permission to seek a trade.
Okay.
They're dealing with it. Well, you're going like this, but that's if they're willing to walk away from L'Jarius Sneed, they're not moving on from Trent McDuffie. So,
go ahead. Let me look up something.
Okay. So that was addressed. The Armstead situation also was addressed.
Which situation?
Teron Armstead, again with Chris Grier, who kind of he said he had a lengthy conversation with Armstead. This is Chris Grier talking before he went to the Pro Bowl, basically told him, you got to take your time, you got to do what's right for you. They're looking for an answer sooner rather than later because, again, they need to know. I know Grier mentioned the start of free agency, but it's more complicated than that because Armstead's got never mind. Started free agency because 3 days into the league year, Armstead has big guaranteed money.
Waddle was 2022 draft pick?
No, 21.
21? Okay. All right.
McDuffie was 22.
Yeah. So you're basically making a trade for. I don't trade a cornerback for a wide receiver. I don't. Sorry. I don't think so.
From which end?
And I think I don't trade Waddle for Trent McDuffie. I think it's easier to find a cornerback than it is find a receiver like Waddle.
Oh, really?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I completely disagree, but okay.
I can find 5 cornerbacks in free agency that can do a Trent McDuffie. No disrespect to him, but
you mean all pro Trent McDuffie?
Yeah. I don't necessarily think that he is just I think he's a byproduct of he's in a great system with a great scheme. Great system with a great scheme on a great team with a great defense. Great pass rushing.
How many Chiefs games did you watch?
I watched plenty. I don't think he's absolute. L'Jarius Sneed, you don't think, okay, L'Jarius Sneed's about to get a franchise tag. Is he that dynamic?
Yes.
Okay.
You like that passer rating opponent when targeted?
I do.
56.1.
Okay.
Dude's a baller. I mean, their secondary was a complete joke in how good it was. And a lot of it was those 2 corners are really, really good.
Okay.
So anyway, the trade is not happening per Chris Grier. They're not moving on from Jalen Waddle. The next step with Jalen Waddle is going to be 5th-year option contract extension.
5th-year option at $15 million, right?
Is that the number?
You wrote the prices. Yeah. I think that's the number. Which?
Oh yeah. Don't remember. But
yeah,
somewhere around there.
I think it's $15 million. I was looking at quarterback contracts, and $15 million stands out to me, and I was just like, yeah, that's pretty reasonable for Jalen Waddle. High-end cornerbacks are making 20 to 22, so $15 million is real good bargain. Real good bargain.
Why are you mentioning cornerbacks?
I mean, wide receivers.
Okay.
Wide receivers. I'm sorry.
Okay. Interesting comment also. This relates to your assertion that the Dolphins will always go for the flashy toy, shiny toy. Chris Grier was asked about the ramifications of having a quarterback who's no longer on his rookie deal. And he would basically, in a roundabout way, suggesting that not going to be able to go after that big guy every year like we used to. At some point, got to be about draft and develop a little bit more.
I read, thanks to you, some of those comments that he made relating to Tua Tagovailoa, and business is different when you're carrying a quarterback salary, and you got to do much better in the draft. So it correlates to a column that I wrote on alldolphins.com, which basically means Chris Grier from this point has to be held accountable for what happens to this team, just because all of these decisions are his decisions. They're in his hand. And you made this mess. You got to clean it up because this is a mess. What you have this offseason is officially a mess. Your job is to clean it up. Your owner is going to give you all of the avenues and abilities to clean it up, which some teams would never do. The, Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals, just to name a few, they're not doing what Steve Ross is going to do. The Green Bay Packers are not doing what Steve Ross is going to do. Go ahead.
I don't remember what Green Bay. Oh, no. Green Bay, I think he might be off there. But it reminds me, as you mentioned, the Stephen Ross, we should give him a shout out. The NFLPA survey came out, their annual survey. This was done between August and November. Everybody was on an NFL roster during that period of time was given the opportunity to fill out a survey, 11 different categories relating to working conditions for their team, including coach, ownership, training facilities, locker room, weight room, training staff, dietitian, nutrition, food cafeteria, how well they treat their family, travel, and all that. And the Dolphins, absolutely, A's across the board. I
think coaching got the worst grade.
Coaching was the lowest rank, and they still got an A. But he was 8th in the NFL in terms of coaches. Stephen Ross was number 1 owner. They were number 1 in a couple of other things. I think food cafeteria might have been one of them. But A's across the board, first overall in terms of the overall score. They were second last year.
Yeesh.
And the team that with whom they swapped spots was the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, they got.
And by the way, the interesting part about that too, was 31st next to last.
Patriots?
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs?
The Kansas City Chiefs.
They were first place in food cafeteria, training room, training staff, weight room, and team travel, and then ownership. They were number 2 in nutrition and dietitian and strength coaches. So, and that's a testament to the organization, from Steve Ross to Tom Garfinkel to Chris Grier. I say this all the time on social media and Instagram. Like, I'm a gardening lover. People don't know this about me unless they follow my Instagram. And the fact that the Dolphins are immaculate with their gardening, every single day there are gardeners out there, every single day working on that garden. That just shows you it no detail goes what's the saying? Spare no detail or something. I don't remember what I'm.
Spare no change. I don't know.
Yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. It hasn't translated to football, primarily because they don't necessarily pick the right people to run the organization or pick the right quarterback. And this predates Tua. Tua.
Okay.
This predates Tua, but
still no playoff wins since 2000, though. Still no playoff wins since 2000, though.
Subsequent of byproduct of circumstances.
Of course, it's always circumstances. But
they did lose to the Super Bowl champions. At least will you say that?
Yeah, it's the only game the Chiefs won by more than 7 points in the entire playoffs. But that's a different story. So one of the byproducts of that survey absolutely would underscore the fact that why free agents would want to come to Miami if the money's anywhere near equal. You got all of that. If you don't think the working conditions, all of those
they matter.
They do, plus no state income tax and plus the weather.
Yeah, I say this all the time. Like, the Dolphins are the most popular team in Indianapolis because everybody wants to talk to them. Everybody wants their free agent to be in the conversation with Miami because the price goes up. If the other teams know that Miami's in play, price just went up. So they've used that position, they've used that situation to benefit them. However, this offseason, they're going to be bargain shopping. They're at the Dollar Tree, baby. They're living on Dollar Tree budget. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how they pull this off. As I continue to say, the first thing is that $37 million deficit. You got to pay that credit card bill. And how they do it, they're in Indian talking to executives. talking to coaches, talking to agents. So they got to figure out how they can manage to massage and maneuver the cap. Jerome Baker.
Yes.
What was said about Jerome?
Basically, the first thing that they need to do is they're going to have the coaches evaluate Jerome's film to see how he fits into their new scheme, and then sit down and decide how they want to proceed with him, and then perhaps have a conversation where they say, Jerome, you will take a pay cut and you will like it, or you can go see what you can get on the open market.
Okay, yes. So
that's Grier again likes it. I like Jerome. I'd love to have him on the team, but those conversations have to take place. We didn't talk about Christian Wilkins, and I presented the question to Chris Grier exactly like this, because I made this point here on the podcast that I told Chris, both you and Mike McDaniel had used the phrase, he's earned the right to be a free agent. And you use the same wordage with Mike Gesicki last year. Does that suggest that you will not be putting the franchise tag? And basically his response was all options are open. And he's going to meet with David Mulugeta in Indy this week.
And Migueta's got 10 Dolphins players.
Well, between he and Drew Rosenhaus, they own the market on Dolphin players. But I'm like almost 50-50 as far as a prediction that they're not going to put the franchise tag on, because that's another 20. What was it? 22 million.
If you're going to put the franchise tag
on your cap,
and that's not going to be easy to clear. And I'm not at the point where I can clear $37 million, and I've worked very hard to do so. It's a challenge. So you add another $22 million on top of that. But understand, even if you do get a deal done with Christian Wilkins, it's going to add to your deficit. So, because Christian is a free agent and he's not on your books right now. So no matter what his year one cap hit is going to be, and let's say I can conservatively say the smallest it'll be is $6 million.
Yeah, but here's the thing is they can agree to a deal before March 13th and then make it official after March 13th.
That is true. You're still going to have to create the space needed to fit that deal in. So
correct. No, that's true.
Yeah. And understand you will get cap space eventually on June 1st when you get Xavien Howard's money, but that doesn't benefit you right now.
Nope.
So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, but we have got a long offseason ahead. Alan Poupard is going to continue to be in Indianapolis, and we will be continuing to do these podcasts for you, breaking all of these news and discussions down. And you know how you can find all our work. There are probably about 6 stories up, 6 columns up today on alldolphins.com. You can find it. No paywall, no subscriptions. It's all free, okay? And you know how to find the podcast, All Dolphins, on any audio platform, or you can look for it on YouTube. And hopefully you're subscribing by now. We would love that. So, Poupard, enjoy Indy. Where you headed for dinner tonight? What's the big plan?
I'm debating. I know who I'm going to dinner with. A buddy from the Eagles. Not quite sure where we're going. Maybe Yard House. We did a Dolphin meal at St. Elmo last night.
Mm-hmm.
No, I did not do the shrimp. I can't deal with that cocktail sauce. That's just ridiculous.
All right. See, Dolphins taking care of you guys already with the Dolphins meal. Look at that. All right.
No, it was the Dolphins writers who went out.
Oh, the team didn't pay the bill? No. What? All right. Yeah. They have. You guys got to step your game up. Okay. All right.
Yes, they have in the past. Yes.
They have in the past. Yes. I would appreciate everybody subscribing to All Dolphins podcast. And even if you just listen to an episode for 3 minutes, it makes a difference. We will see you tomorrow.